Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple for Mr. Ashe. Thank you for joining us here. A couple issues in our area here in Eastern California. Fish and Wildlife has designated about 2.2 million acres across the Sierra as critical habitat, geared towards the mountain yellow-legged frog. This is something of very keen interest in my district as well as my colleague, Mr. McClintock, on the east side. And first of all, that's a lot of acres, 2.2 million acres for critical habitat and all the accompanying difficulties with using that land, terrain, et cetera, including 20% of one of the counties I represent, Nevada County, would be in this category. So we have UC Berkeley, San Francisco State, National Science Foundation, U.S. Forest Service, and every other researcher has shown that, again, given the mountain yellow-legged frog, that there's a fungus that is affecting the frog and its population, and the species is called the chytrid fungus, the way I pronounce it, and that's what is responsible for the decline of the population of this mountain yellow-legged frog. It doesn't have anything to do with timber operations or home building, off-roaders, hiking, or other activities that people are involved, but instead a fungus that has been known to be in the area, as well as having impact not just in California, but in many other areas of North America and even around the world. So what I'm trying to understand is, why are we in California being targeted once again for what is a naturally occurring problem? It does remind one of the issue with the spotted owl years ago, where people were blamed for a population that was mentioned earlier in this committee that largely might be laid at the feet of the barred owl competing or taking out the spotted owl. So what you might have here is a situation where interference would actually stand in the way of the natural process of things in nature, where, unless somebody comes up with some type of wide cure for the chytrid fungus, that the remedy doesn't involve, once again, perhaps changing human behavior for something that really has no impact. What would you say to that situation?
I'd say you ask a very good question, but what I would say, the word natural is a term that people will interpret differently. And so if we think about something like the chytrid fungus, I was talking with Ms. Shea Porter yesterday about white nose syndrome in bats. Chytrid fungus is not a native fungus to the United States. It was imported to the United States, like white nose syndrome was imported to the United States from outside. It's an invasive disease in frogs, and so the movement of barred owls into the Pacific Northwest is not a natural event. It was made possible when the people populated the prairies and planted trees, and forests grew up in the U.S. prairies, and the barred owl moved across the west into the Pacific Northwest. So some people may see that as natural, other people may see that as human-driven. But the point is, the law requires us to consider disease as an impact to endangered species. So when we make a listing determination, we have to consider whether disease is a factor in. But if disease is the cause, then that doesn't mean that we have to regulate other activities. And so forestry, grazing, the things that are not causing impact to the frog are not regulated, because the cause is, in that case, disease.
Well, they very likely will be. We see the pattern of that when you have a critical habitat listing, that whatever that habitat may be is going to have further regulation upon its usage or its entrance by human populations. So this is something that we're very interested in, what that impact will be, what remedies might be put in place by your organization and many others. So what I would ask of you is that we'll be having a town hall hearing on this in Nevada County on September 4th, and we request that you have some of your folks there so they can answer the questions for why 20% of Nevada County will be subject to a critical habitat that could affect their very lifestyle.
We'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. All right, I yield back.